The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I've rang up Mendon all, he said he could make
Don't
it.
dig this hole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has to. He is a shocking person right now. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-bit.
No, my life from Rashad Mendon.
Right, you guys, I'm a tag jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Hello and welcome to the first week of the LOC season. We've just had the draft and I'm joined by none other than Coach of Pakistan, Coach Alan. How's it going, Pat?
Yeah, it's very good. Thank you for inviting me along.
Very happy to have you here on the LOC Report, as you'll be my co-host today.
Yeah, I'm shitting it, basically.
You're off to a flying start, don't worry. Yes, unfortunately, the real co-host is stuck on the M27. I'd hazard maybe 5 to 10 miles from here, so he sadly could not come. But who knows, he might be able to listen to this by the time we're done, depending on how the traffic is.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, doesn't sound like he's going to be moving for a long time.
It doesn't, no. But we have got a very good episode today. As I said, it's week 1, so you know that we had the draft last weekend, and we'll also have the week 1 previews because of that. Now, usually, we delve straight into the league news. We're not going to do that today. We're going to start with the draft recap because obviously some news follows what happened in the draft, so it never really makes sense. So we're going to do this episode in a bit of an odd order. So, as I said, draft this Saturday. By all accounts, I think it was a good one. Successful. Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. I did quite well. A lot better than I thought I was going to do. Some other teams, though, I'm not liking.
Yeah.
But mine's fine, so that's all that matters.
Absolutely. I had fun. We had a bit of fun. Round 15, we got other people up to announce the picks. 100% attendance for the first time ever. I'm as a commissioner, I'm ecstatic about that.
Yeah, well, it's my second draft, so it's not a big deal for me, I don't think. So.
8 years it took us to get 100%, Pat. I don't think you realise the magnitude of that. Every team now has a logo. I'm also extremely proud of that.
Apart from Ollie, but technically his one.
That's his own logo now. He's adopted the grey helmet as a logo.
Doesn't count, but yeah. Okay. Just gonna put that out there.
Well, all he needs to do is flip it the other way around, then re-upload it, and then it counts, right? Because it's.
It'd just be easier just to put a proper picture up.
It would, but he likes the grey helmet. I just didn't want loads of grey helmets. Anyway, we're digressing. We've got round 1 on deck here, so we're going to go through each round first. Talk about surprises, our loves and hates, and then we'll go into the team-by-team review. So we'll start off with round 1. So Ross took Antonio Brown. Then the next picks were Ezekiel Elliott, Rob Gronkowski, David Johnson, Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson, Lamar Miller, Odell Beckham Jr., Le'Veon Bell, Julio Jones, Jamal Charles, and AJ Green. Your take of round 1, Pat?
Well, first pick, very, very standard, Antonio Brown. Second pick, this is where it started to go a bit skew with Ezekiel Elliott coming off the board at second. I thought that he'd probably be hitting the 8th mark in this round, maybe.
Sure.
And also the next pick, third, Rob Gronkowski. Did not see that coming. I didn't expect to see him until the early start of the second round. Those are the 2 biggest surprises for me. Everything else seems very standard. I do believe that we did go very running back heavy in this round compared to what I thought.
I was about to point that out because in a lot of the rankings, receivers were top 3 on the board ahead of any running back, and then even then behind that, wide receivers were quite heavy. But in this round, I believe we only had 3 receivers go off the board as my math. Yeah, 3 receivers go off the 4, with Antonio Brown at the top, 4. But after the first pick, we had 6 straight running backs, I think. Then we had 2 more. Le'Veon Bell and Jamal Charles, not as big a surprises as the ones you read out, Ezekiel and Rob Gronkowski going where they were. But I think in their own right, Lev Bell and Jamal Charles were a bit of a surprise for the first round. What do you think?
I thought Jamal Charles, he'd only probably be out for maybe 1-2 weeks, they're saying, but
from what I've heard, you've got to kind of look at him at the same as Lev Bell. It's going to take him about 3 weeks, a month to get
You really think 3 weeks?
That's what I've heard.
Okay, so yeah, this would make more sense then. I really predicted that Lev Bell go halfway through the second round, not in the first round.
No doubt he's a next level talent, but it's that trade-off. Are you drafting for season long or whatever? Anyway, that was round 1. So round 2, we have Devontae Freeman, LaShawn McCoy, Des Bryant, DeAndre Hopkins, Mark Ingram, Eddie Lacy, Jordy Nelson, Allen Robinson, Doug Martin, Brandon Marshall, Amari Cooper, and Keenan Allen. I think a fairly bog standard as far as rankings and surprises go. what you'd expect really in this round.
Yeah. I still think very run heavy, like at the top of the board.
Yep.
You've only got, was it 2 wide receivers off in the first half of the second round?
Yep, still running back heavy.
Yeah, and I was very, very surprised that I got Allen Robinson at that point. I was a bit shocked. I thought I'd missed somebody on the board. Oh, crap.
And I was happy to get Doug Martin because he was the last
elite running back.
Really, in that of the kind of tier we just said remaining. So that was good for me. Moving on to round 3, then we have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Thomas Rawls, Randall Cobb, Mike Evans, Cam Newton, Jarvis Landry, Sammy Watkins, Matt Forte, C.J. Anderson, Alshon Jeffrey, and Jordan Reed. Now, there are a few surprises again in this round, and the first pick was... I know Gronkowski went at 3 and Elliott went at 2, but this, for me, was probably the biggest of the draft, biggest surprise of the draft.
Yeah, Tom Brady, in the 3rd round, very surprising, but I think he had to get out because of his team name.
Obviously,
it was a bit worrying about...
So Ross renamed his team name from the Rome sections to the Brady Bunch, or for the first 4 weeks of the season, the Bunch. As we all know, Brady will miss the first 4 weeks, which made it quite a surprising pick, and, I don't think anyone was drafting him before me, and really, that would have been round 6. Someone might have taken him round 5. To take him in round 3, remember he's got the turn as well. He's got the 2-3 turn, so that was a big shock. Thomas Rawls, are you surprised to see him go as high as he did?
I think that at the time I was sort of expecting him to go sometime in the 3rd round, but the story after the draft probably would make you wanting to pick in maybe the 4th or 5th round.
Sure.
But with Christine Michael coming in.
Sure. Other than that, I don't think there's really any major surprises, would you say?
Someone started off the quarterback run, I was just about to say.
Yeah, we had 3 quarterbacks off the board in this round. Yeah, by the looks of things, Aaron Rodgers, Brady, and Newton, the elite of the elite, so kind of understandable. In round 4, we have Demaryius Thomas, Russell Wilson, Latavius Murray, Brandon Cooks, Ryan Matthews, Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, Jonathan Stewart, Jeremy Macklin, Arian Foster, Doug Baldwin, Carlos Hyde. Now, as you said, that the QB run kind of dipped into this round as well. We had, 2 more quarterbacks off the board in this round. Any surprises? I mean, again, I think it's a fairly general round.
Yeah, I was just about to say Carlos Hyde has just been cleared to play week 1. That's literally happened on the walk-in.
So he's been cleared to practice.
Cleared to practice, is it?
Not week 1. He needs to practice and get through that, and then he'll be fine for week 1. We'll get to that a bit later in the injury news, but I agree, he should be good to go week 1. And that's a bit of a steal, in all honesty, because in a lot of rankings, he's around 30th, that kind of range. So, he's going to be the bell cow. Obviously, he's kind of the only offensive weapon in San Francisco, really. So, could be a really good pick here. Arian Foster, though, do you think this was a bit early for Arian Foster?
I was about to say this. Yes, I would have put him maybe mid-5th round, but the most worrying thing with the Tuck Fard's pick is the bit of the worry behind Thomas Rawls as well. Yeah,
a very injury-prone duo, which we'll get to, obviously, when we look at his team in a bit. But we'll move on to round 5 here. So we've got Jeremy Hill, Jeremy Langford, Alan Hearns, Eric Decker, Melvin Gordon, DeMarco Murray, Kelvin Benjamin, Rashard Jennings, Dante Moncrief, Greg Olsen, Frank Gore, and Julian Edelman. Surprises in round 5. I think there's a couple here as well.
The first one I see is Alan Hearns.
Going ahead of Eric Decker.
I would have taken Alan Hearns maybe around the 7th or 8th round if he had popped up.
Definitely.
I wouldn't have taken this early, but as we know, Phil Merritt is a Jags fan.
That's what he wants.
And that's what he wants. But we've seen him do it year after year. Well, you've seen him do it year after year. Somehow pulls it out, except for last season. Rashard Jennings as well. He's going to be the number 1 running back in New York. There's a lot of talk this year about how they're going to ride him as the, maybe not necessarily bell cow, but he's going to be the lead back as opposed to the 4-headed monster they had at last season at running back. But still, do you think it's a little bit early for Rashard Jennings, or do you think this is about right? I think that's about right. Maybe I'd probably see him going at the end of this round anyway. So if the Badestinators wanted to get him, they won't get him in the next round.
Sure. Finally here, Julian Edelman at pick 60, end of the round. Now, I think, when Edelman's healthy, he's capable of wide receiver 1 numbers. I don't think he plays 16-game seasons too often. But, he's that kind of slot receiver in New England that gets the yards, get the catches. He also gets the touchdowns quite a lot as well. So he could potentially be a value pick here.
Yeah, but it's the same story with Gronk. He hasn't got Tom Brady for 4 weeks as well.
That's very true.
So his points are going to fall maybe the first 4 weeks.
Very true. Moving on to round 6, we have Giovanni Bernard, Larry Fitzgerald, Jordan Matthews, Amir Abdullah, Emmanuel Sanders, Deshaun Jackson, Michael Floyd, Duke Johnson, Matt Jones, TJ Eldon, Golden Tate, Seattle Seahawks. Now, I think it's, again, kind of a fairly typical round. A few things. Ignan obviously got their guy again, Larry Fitzgerald. They didn't have him last year. He actually has a bounce back year, so they'll be hoping they have another decent year with him. And we have a first defense off the board here. What do you make of that?
I was expecting Ross to do that at some point, just to take a defense straight. Take
round 6 is usually around the time the first one goes as well.
And the other interesting one I realised was also for Coach Merritt was TJ Yeldon, and he took him before Chris Ivory went off the board, which some people would like, and some people like maybe you could have maybe held out a couple more rounds.
Very true, definitely, very true. Moving on to round 7, we have Travis Kelce, Derrick Henry, Michael Crabtree, Marvin Jones, John Brown, Delaney Walker, Chris Ivory, Broncos D, DeAndre Williams, Drew Brees, Kobe Fleener, and Theo Riddick. Anything surprise you in this round? It's hard to get surprises at this point of the draft, because the players you're drafting are less assured of their workload. You're going towards that more upside, that bench player who, might get some points some weeks, might develop, that kind of thing. So, in that regard, fairly typical round. I love the Derrick Henry pick. I think he could be a really good player if he owns the work away from Murray. Theo Riddick at 84. What do you think about Theo Riddick?
I think it's a bit of a stretch. Well, I wouldn't go anywhere near the Detroit
It's looking like the Giants won last season.
Yeah.
That being said, who has Amir Abdullah? It's not yet. No, someone drafted Amir Abdullah.
I can't see him.
He did come off the board.
Did he come back? Was it last?
No, it wasn't round 4. I thought it was round 5.
I don't think anyone's taken him yet. I haven't heard you say it.
Oh, here he is. Sorry, it's in the round before. Yeah, Bennett says he's taken him in round 6, so that as well could be a bit of a reach. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Moving on to round 8, we have Corey Coleman, Carolina Panthers D, Justin Forsett, Zach Ertz, Carson Palmer, Kamar Aiken, Danny Woodhead, Josh Gordon, Christine Michael, Ben Roethlisberger, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Jay Ajayi. What do you make of round 8?
There's a few questionable ones. One of them's actually my own.
Yes.
With Josh Gordon. I absolutely loved watching him in the preseason. I watched loads on him, and I think I sort of got a bit overexcited about it. I still think that where I picked him was fair enough, because they were believing that he'd go between 8 and 10.
Yeah, he could go off any round.
Yeah, I was just worried, because looking at the sort of who was left on the board, I didn't see him lasting till my next round. So I got a bit overexcited and jumped through him, but it's one of those things. In 4 weeks you'll be able to tell if I'll be really happy or if I'll be like, man, I messed up. For
sure. Speaking of messing up, the biggest one I'm seeing here is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Now, I think at the time of the draft he definitely wasn't the starter. I think since he might be listed as the co-starter, I'm not really sure what's going on there, but certainly at the time and in the round there were better options, I think.
Yeah, well, you still had people like Gary Barnage, Dwayne Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few good names still on the board. I can't remember who got taken in the next round. Well, yeah, I took Gary Barnage in the next round. Was there any
But there
others?
were still other good times.
There was, I just can't think
Antonio
of
Gates, which I picked up later
on.
So yeah, and we should mention by this point as well, a funny point of the draft, my dad let the clock run out on him while he was on the clock. Not once, not twice, 3 times.
Do you know why he did that?
He would rather move a pick back to make sure he selected the right player as opposed to rush himself and perhaps take the wrong one. I mean, 176 other picks, Nigel also managed it once as well. People did just fine. So I don't really know what was going on there, but
I can see
he didn't lose the guy he wanted, but at the same time you don't know if it's going to happen. So anyway, round 9 we've got Sterling Shepard, Kevin White, Devontae Parker, James White, Gary Barnage, Torrey Smith, Isaiah Crowell, Spencer Ware, Eli Manning, Kansas City Chiefs D, Tyler Lockett and Blake Bortles. What do you think of round 9?
Well, we mentioned about me selecting Gary Barnage. Maybe a bit of a reach. It depends. See how the first couple of weeks go, and then we'll revisit that.
Time.
I quite like the Isaiah Crowell there from Tom Tyrants.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. He did very well for me last year. Yeah. Blake Bortles right at the end for Andy Dalton. It was getting to the point where a lot of the good quality quarterbacks were coming off the board,
Yep,
and
sure.
I was starting to panic at this point. Yeah, Torrey Smith though for Forge Flyers.
Yeah,
I've not
interesting
only
one.
one sort of target in the whole of the preseason. He played every game.
He's the wide receiver 1, but
They're
does
bad.
that mean anything with Blaine Gabbert throwing to?
No.
Because we all know he's a bit of a one-trick pony. He's a bit of a deep threat, and Blaine Gabbert can't throw deep.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly. So we'll see how that goes. Round 10 though, Arizona Cardinals D, LeGarrette Blount, Charles Sims, Houston Texans D, Jared Cook, Dion Lewis, Vincent Jackson, Phillip Rivers, Derek Carr, Los Angeles Rams, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Bilal Powell. What do you make of round 10?
A lot of defenses off the board here.
Yeah.
But the most surprising one is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, that was
This
another
early.
eyebrow raiser. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people didn't even expect him to get anywhere close to being drafted, and here they go in round 10. So.
Yeah. A pick I do like off this board though is Bilal Powell from.
He's a clever one. Yeah.
That was a good one.
No, especially now that Kyrie Robinson's gone down, it's going to be Forte and Powell. So
That was my next pick.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Moving on to round 11 though, we got Willie Snead, Tavon Austin, Terrence West, Antonio Gates, Tevin Coleman, Jarek McKinnon, Tyler Eifert, Travis Benjamin, Stephon Diggs, Mark Sweeten, Steven Gostkowski, and Devontae Booker. Would you make a round 11? First kicker off the board here too.
First kicker, a good one as well at that. I think Ben was getting his roster all finalled up at this point. I do like the pick Willie Snead by the bunch. That was another one I was thinking of. They were the two on my board. Thinking, I've only got like 5 picks and 2 people. I'm sure I'll get one of them. No, not at all.
Sure.
And I let him know that as well.
Round 12, Mohamed Sanu, Steve Smith, Stephen Hauschka, Alfred Morris, Tajay Sharp, Rashard Matthews, Michael Thomas, Devin Finchess, Kirk Cousins, and Quan Bolden, Kenneth Dixon, Justin Tucker. I don't think there's really any surprises here.
Very standard.
We'll speed through these unless there's anything particularly interesting. Round 13, James Starks, Robbie Gould,
Had to be done.
Dwayne Allen, Mike Wallace, Darrell Green Beckham, Darren Sproles, Zach Miller, Tyrod Taylor, Martellus Bennett, Chris Johnson, Pierre Garçon, Shane Vereen. Now, 2 interesting things here. You highlighted that Robbie Gould had to be drafted by Cash for Gold. We'll get to what happened afterwards a bit later. But the other really surprising thing, and a lot of people, this was a classic Phil move here on the draft. We've seen it times before. He drafted T.Y. Hilton and Andre Johnson very closely to each other last season. He's taken Matt Stafford in round 9, backing up Drew Brees, who he got in the first one year. He's taken 2 DSTs. I think he even took 3 DSTs one year. This year, he's done it again. Takes Rob Gronkowski at number 3 overall. Takes a backup tight end in Dwayne Allen here.
And let's not... I thought he was going to take Julius Thomas because obviously another Jag. I thought he was going to stack them all up, but no. But it just makes... I don't really understand it myself. Taking
You're not the only one.
Yeah, and his reasoning behind it was, just taking a big name off the board. It's like, but...
Is he that big of a name?
No, but he's a good... I think he was...
He's a good tight end, don't worry.
Good
He'll
tight
have his
end.
weeks, absolutely. But
Yeah.
you don't need him when you go Gronk. Round 14, Chandler Catanzaro, Matthew Stafford, Phil Dorsett, Mason Crosby, Julius Thomas, Philadelphia Eagles D, Pittsburgh Steelers D, New York Jets D, Minnesota Vikings D, bit of a D run here, Victor Cruz, Laquan Treadwell, Ronnie Hillman, again, no real surprises there.
Ronnie Hillman's been dropped now.
Yeah, we'll get to that a bit later too, but he has been released. Round 15, Robert Woods, JJ Nelson, Cairo Santos, Matt Prater, Graham Gino, Brandon McManus, Sebastian Janikowski, Dan Bailey, Javorius Allen, DeAndre Washington, Will Fuller, and Andy Dalton. To Andy Dalton, red zone right at the end. Kind of fitting, that one, I found.
Yeah.
And that was the LOC draft. A good one. We'll go through the teams real quickly now. If you'll give me a second, they're up here. So we'll start off in order as best we can. So let's look at the bunch first. We'll look at the starting lineup. So Ross has Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback. Obviously Brady is on the reserve spot. Jeremy Hill and Carlos Hyde are starting running backs. Antonio Brown and Keenan Allen starting receivers. Travis Kelce at tight end and Sterling Shepard at flex. What do you make of the bunch?
Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm not a massive fan of having a rookie in the flex.
Yeah, the flex is a real weak spot for me, I think, here. The receivers are, to be fair, probably the best duo in the league, or arguably. Running backs, they have a lot of high upside. They've got, potential to not do much as well. Kelsey's a solid tight end. Fitzpatrick, it's a bridge quarterback until they get Brady back, obviously.
Yeah.
But the thing I struggle... Oh, and they've got the Seahawks D. But the thing I struggle with here is the bench. There's a lot of guys on this bench that I don't know. You've got Bilal Powell and Willie Snead, which you pointed out, which I think you could call on them in a pinch maybe. But they're definitely not consistent starters. And anyone else, I'm not really sure.
James Starks, I don't see him doing anything really this year because they gave him a chance last year and he didn't step up to the plate.
The bench is a weak spot for this team.
Yeah, but so he needs to do a lot of good waiver transactions in the next few weeks and he'll be fine.
Yeah. Next we'll look at cash for gold when I can find them. Here they are. So they've got Aaron Rodgers, quarterback, Jeremy Langford and Ezekiel Elliott at running back, Doug Baldwin and Amari Cooper at receiver, Austin Seferian-Jenkins at tight end and Golden Tate at receiver. What do you make of cash for gold? Yeah, I'm a bit iffy.
And also Jags
Z against Green Bay in week 1 as well. That's not going to be fun. I think kind of a weak bench as well. They've got a couple of good upside picks in Derrick Henry and Kevin White. Tavon Austin can be started if needed, but behind that, not a lot. Kenneth Dixon could develop, but it's a lot of upside picks. Nothing you want to start right now.
I don't think Laquan Treadwell's going to do much this year either, especially with Bridgewater going down. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be.
Rookie receivers typically struggle. We've already talked about Austin Seferian-Jenkins, so I have worries about cash for gold. We'll look at the tuck forwards next. Here they are. So they've got Ben Roethlisberger at QB, Arian Foster and Thomas Rawls at running back, Michael Crabtree and Brandon Marshall at receiver, Gronkowski at tight end, Alan Hearns in the flex, Rams defense as well. What do you make of the tuck forwards?
I think it's very a couple injuries and it's going to go all horrible.
Skewer.
Yeah.
The bench, there is not a lot of options on the bench, if any, I think they can call upon right now.
Nope.
There's a few upside ones, a few head scratches for me. Cruz and Bolden, don't really know if they're going to do anything.
Yeah.
And you said it best, Foster, Rules, both 3 injury risks. They can't lose anyone, basically. I think the team might already struggle as it is, but they can't lose anyone.
Yeah, it's just thinking that your wide receiver 2 is Michael Crabtree. For a starting lineup.
He's a flex guy. They've got 2 flex at best receivers, right? Alan Hearns and Michael Crabtree.
I'd only feel confident with having Michael Crabtree at the flex. I wouldn't want him there.
Sure. We'll look at my team now. Gridiron Gang, quarterback Derek Carr, running back Doug Martin and David Johnson, receivers Jeremy Maclin and Randall Cobb, tight end Antonio Gates, in the flex Eric Decker, DST Minnesota Vikings. I think it's a solid starting lineup. I said this in the power rankings, which we'll get to in a bit. I don't think it's going to, experience highest of the highs, but I also don't think it's going to have lowest of the lows. And I think my bench is solid enough. I can call up on a few options on that as well. Yeah. What do you think?
I'm most interested by Randall Cobb this year. I want to see how he performs.
Yeah, last time he had Nelson playing with him, he was the wide receiver 6 in fantasy. Everyone expected a regression from that season because he got a ridiculous amount of touchdowns, but
I think it's going to be good when Nelson comes back because I think it'll take a lot of pressure off Cobb because I think he was double marked most of the year and
hard to be a number 1 receiver in the slot.
Yeah,
and he was injured as well. He obviously had that shoulder injury which plagued him all season. So we'll look at your team now, Pat. You were 5th in the order. Let's find your team. Here they are. So we've got Phillip Rivers at QB, Jonathan Stewart and Todd Gurley at running back, Mike Evans and Robinson at receiver, Gary Barnes at tight end, and Melvin Gordon in the flex. You've also got the Jets. Deal. Tell me what you think, Pat.
I
really like it.
I quite like it as well. I think my bench could be a little bit stronger at the running back position because you've
got a lot of upside picks there. I think John Brown is the only one you'd want to start.
Yeah.
Any time in the near future. A lot of those guys need seasoning.
I can also see Duke Johnson being a bye-week filler in there as well.
Yeah.
I really like my wide receiver core, mainly because I have a Tampa Bay Buccaneer there.
Sorry, I have to point out. I've just noticed you have got 3 Browns on your team, and that makes me laugh a little bit.
Yeah, no, I wasn't planning ever to play them all at one go, obviously, and I was also thinking about probably trading them about. It's just I was going for the best players on the board at the time.
That's how you do it, yeah.
And I worry about the multiple players.
Sure.
Later on.
Sure. So our next team here for Flyers, they're 6th, so they've got Cam Newton at QB, DeMarco Murray and Adrian Peterson at running back, Jordy Nelson, T.Y. Hilton at receiver, Delaney Walker at tight end, and Micah Floyd in the flex and the Steelers D. What do you make of Forge Flyers?
I quite like it. I think it's a
solid lineup. I think it's kind of like my team. I don't think it's going to light the world on fire necessarily.
I'm also worrying about. We're not worrying. I'm curious about Jordy Nelson, whether or not he can return from his injury.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray will be an interesting one to
And
watch
DeMarco
too.
Murray,
Will
yeah.
he succeed in Tennessee? Looking at the bench, though, I mean, they've got Danny Woodhead, which, you know, he's arguably a flex-worthy player.
Yeah.
But behind that, there's no real upside for me. It's kind of just low-end backups. You know, you don't want to be in a position where you're playing any of them, even in a pinch, really. Vince Jackson could be okay now that he's healthy. Jarrett McKinnon has a bit of upside, but not a lot. Not a lot on the bench yet for me.
Yeah, well, Jeremy McKinnon's just a handcuff, really, for AP.
Sure.
Yeah.
So our next team here, Tom's Tyrants, I believe they were 7th. So they've got Andrew Luck at QB, Lamar Miller and Eddie Lacy at running back, Kelvin Benjamin and Jarvis Landry at receiver, Zach Miller at tight end, and Deshaun Jackson at flex, Eagles D as well. What do you make of Tom's Tyrants?
I really like Tom's Tyrants, but the only worry is, will Kelvin Benjamin come back to his rookie?
So this team, I quite like it. Luck, obviously great QB. Miller and Lacy, I think Lacy's going to have a bounce back. I think they're absolutely solid at receiver, running back. Sorry, great running backs. My issue is with the receivers and tight ends of this team. Yeah, so a receiver, you already highlighted it. Benjamin, you know, what Benjamin are we going to get? There's already been reports they're going to spread the rock around a little more than they did in his rookie season. Landry as well. While Landry is good, you know, I think he had 1,000 and something yards and 4 touchdowns last season. He was a bit more of a flex as opposed to a wide receiver 2. Can he improve on that? Possibly. They like him in the red zone, so he could definitely improve that touchdown number. I think he's fairly locked in for about 1,100, 1,200 yards. Deshaun Jackson is a flex as well. I think that's fine, but again, he's going to have those boom bust weeks. As you pointed out, just to me right now, Zach Miller, he had a decent few games last year, but he's an injury-prone guy playing on a Bears team. I worry about the pass catchers on this team.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to Detonators then, they have Tyra Taylor at quarterback. They also have Carson Palmer because they drafted him ahead, so that's just for this week, I assume. Mark Ingram and Spencer Ware at running back, and again, Spencer Ware was drafted later on. Ryan Matthews would be the next one in, and then Richard would probably be in the flex. They also have Sammy Watkins and Odell Beckham Jr. at receiver. Jared Cook, tight end. Denver Broncos defense as well. What do you make of Detonators?
Well, Ollie said he was only going to really play Jared Cook for the first week because every first week of the season
he could be a decent tight end.
Yeah.
Like playing with Aaron Rodgers, he's the best quarterback he's ever played with.
Yeah.
So could be good. He's also got Julius Thomas on the bench. I really like his bench as
I
well.
like his
He's
bench.
got a lot of guys who I think, you know, he's kind of sacked a bit of his upside on the starting lineup, but for that he's got a top to bottom roster that's pretty damn good, I would say. I think on the bench, arguably nearly all those options you could start. DJ Sharp is definitely an upside one. Travis Benjamin, we'll have to see about him. But the other 4 guys, I think, you know, are starters on some of the teams in our league, certainly. So I like the Detonators. So next team in the thing, I believe, was Bare Necessities. So let's try and find them. There we are. So they've got Eli Manning at quarterback, Matt Forte and D'Angelo Williams at running back, DeAndre Hopkins and Brandon Cooks at wide receiver, Zach Ertz at tight end, Dante Moncrief at flex, and Texans D. What do you make of Bare Necessities?
Solid team. Solid team. Well, they have Lev Bell coming back at week 3. Is it week 3?
Yep. We forget about Lev Bell. Week 4, he'll be back. Suspended 3 games. And again, I think this team, the bench is definitely the weak part, but as we know with Bare Necessities, they always pick up some waiver guys soon that solidify that team. Amir Abdullah, he's an upside guy. Martellus Bennett could be a good tight end. Other than that, nothing really on the bench that excites me. Alfred Morris is just a handcuff. Stephon Diggs is, I doubt he'll be fantasy relevant much. And Javorius Allen is in a committee from hell.
I'm a bit curious about Alfred Morris because I think he might be quite good this year, depending on how they split up the...
I think it's going to be... I think Elliott he's going to be a bell cow. But, you know, I've been listening to some interesting things about similar types of players to Ezekiel Elliott, who have been quite injury prone just because of their size and the position and the nature they play. So he could definitely play some games this season.
And let's not forget that Alfred Morris wasn't bad last year. He just didn't play. That was the main problem for him.
Yes.
With the Washington
He was
Redskins.
behind a bad O-line too, we should say that.
Which never helps.
The Dream Team now then, they've got Drew Brees, C.J. Anderson, Latavius Murray at running back, Des Bryant, Julio Jones at receiver, tight end Greg Olsen, in the flex Justin Forsett. but they also have Jordan Matthews, who was drafted as a flex. Chiefs D, what do you make of the Dream Team?
I think that
It's a good roster.
I think it's got better after the draft with the dropping of Ronnie Hillman for CJ Anderson. I think he's the main guy now. There's nobody else who's going to be taking anything away from him. Tavis Murray's, I think, it's a brilliant pickup.
Two good RBs, I'd say. Good, not great.
He got him in the... he got Latavius Murray in the 4th round, which is really good. I was expecting to go around the 3rd.
Des Bryant, Julio, again, contenders for best receiver duo in the league.
Yeah. I think Des might have some problems getting the amount of targets this year, but I still think he will be one of the top wide receivers. Greg Olsen I reckon, will be just like last year. Maybe not as good, because I don't know if Cam Newton can perform like he did last year.
Sure, and you think they're going to spread the ball a little bit more. Yeah. They were relying on him. He was really the number one option in that offense last season.
But I still think he'll be one of the top tight ends.
Oh, yeah.
In the top, definitely in the top 5.
Not a lot of depth, I think, on this team either. After Charles Sims, I'm really not sold on Justin Forsett. I think it's going to be a horrible committee. And Jordan Matthews, I think he could have a good season. We'll see.
I think Justin Forsett will be good for the first few weeks, but from this whole fiasco of him being cut and then re-signed, it sounds like that he's not the future at Baltimore. So it might be time after the 4th or 5th week that they'll bring in the new guys and give them more of a load to get them used to the system.
So that was the Dream Team. Now I know there's another team at 10 or no, they were number 10, so we'll go to Ignan now. So Ignan, they've got Russell Wilson at quarterback, Jamal Charles and LaShawn McCoy at running back, Fitzgerald and Jeffrey at receiver, Fleener at tight end, Frank Gore at the flex, and they've obviously got Steven Gostkowski and Panthers D. What do you make of Ignan?
I really like Ignan's probably my favourite team.
I think, even on the bench, they've got Stafford, Blunt, 2 guys that are arguably, startable or at least flex-worthy. Tyler Lockett, he's a great upside pick. A lot of hype around him this year. We'll have to see if he translates. Will Fuller, a good upside pick too. Not in love with Pierre Garçon and Steve Smith, so we'll see about that. But largely on the whole, like you say, it's a really good roster.
Steve Smith has good games every year, though. You can probably chuck him in maybe a bye-week filler.
37 and coming off an Achilles tear, though? I'm not sure.
It was one of his last picks as well, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely not faulting the pick. We're talking about depth-wise. Is he going to make any starts for Ignan this season? Well, I'll put it this way, if he does make any starts, I think they're in a lot of trouble. So, last here, ADLZ, then we'll get to the rest of the show. So, there's been a bit of a long recap. So, they've got Blake Bortles at QB. I'll talk about how this was drafted. Devontae Freeman and Giovanni Bernard at running back. Demaryius Thomas and AJ Green at receiver. Jordan Reed at tight end. Julian Edelman in the flex. And Cardinals D. What do you make of ADRZ?
I think it's another solid team. I'm not a massive fan of having Shane Vereen.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision starting Shane Vereen this week.
And also Demaryius Thomas is a bit of a stretch for me because I think he's been picked a lot higher than he should have been.
Yeah.
Because I don't see him getting that many targets.
I think he should be a wide receiver too. Quote should, but he's obviously playing with the worst quarterback of his career. He didn't exactly have a great quarterback situation last year, and he still put up decent numbers, decent or great. But I completely agree. There's a lot of players on this team that, in seasons past, if you had them, you'd be like, wow, great roster. But they have a lot more question marks surrounding them this year. Bortles, he was turnover prone last year, and they were playing catch up a lot. Jags figured to be, in a better situation this year. Is he going to pass as much? Like you said, Shane Vereen, he's definitely gone down with the news of Rashad Jennings being a bell cow. Freeman, he's had a lot of questions about how much work he's going to get. As you said, Thomas already. Green, he's going to get a lot more coverage, paid attention to him with the lack of other pass catches in Cincinnati now. Jordan Reed, bit of an injury risk. Number 2 tight end in last year, so he should be good. We've already talked about Julian Edelman, his health risks as well, and playing without Brady the first 4 weeks. Could be an absolutely great roster, completely agree, but could also struggle.
Yeah.
The bench as well, they've got not a lot of options, I think. Really, it's a really thin bench.
There's nothing really to talk about. Like, they've got Corey Coleman, rookie. I don't really imagine him doing a massive amount for the Browns for the beginning part of the year, at least. When
Shane Vereen is your best bench, it's not great. Devontae Booker, he's just a handcuff. He needs an injury to happen, really, to get any work. So that was 2016 LOC Draft. So that was a long recap. But that now means we can finally, ages into this episode, get to the league news. So yeah, as I said, the draft was last weekend just gone. Now this next piece of news is gonna surprise some people, but I think it's only fair. So subs, obviously, this is 2 quid subs each year for the league. This covers things like some nibbles of the draft, the trophy, and the winner's prize of Corona, and a few other things here and there. It's not a lot of money. In season past, not everyone has paid me, either just forgetting or not being able to get me the money. But it's not fair on the people that do pay, because they're bearing costs. It's not fair on me. The cost, the 2 quid doesn't always cover it anyway. I'm happy to take anything above that 2 quid. But I think it's fair that everyone pays 2 quid. So, if you do not pay me your 2 quid subs, you will be docked 10 points each week until you pay me for the first 3 weeks, and then after that, the punishments will get steeper. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Do you want to name who?
Yeah, I'll name it. So Ben, Ollie Gardner, Phil, Oliver Dett, and Ross, get your £2 to me, otherwise you will be docked points.
And Phil only
owes £1 though. Phil's already paid me £1, so Phil, you only owe me £1. So that's that. So obviously the first game is, as of recording, tomorrow. When you're listening, perhaps today, whenever you're listening, it's Thursday the 8th of September, Denver v Carolina Panthers. And then the full slate of games starts on Sunday the 11th. As I keep saying, you're welcome to mine to watch it. So we'll get to the first transactions and roster moves of the LOC calendar here. Bare necessities. Le'Veon Bell is eligible for their reserve spot. He has not moved him on there yet, but when they do, they can add a player. Same for you, Pat. Josh Gordon, you can put him on reserve now and pick up another player. Tom's Tyrants, already hot on that. Dion Lewis has been placed in reserve, and they've added Rob Kelly, running back for Washington Redskins. The Homosexuals, Tom Brady was placed on reserve, and they added Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that was it for the transactions roster moves. Not surprising, it's quite quiet after the draft. So we'll get to the injury and player news now. We always like to start the season with a clean slate. It's fairly clean, but there's a few things to clean up here. The Homosexuals, Ronnie Hillman was released during final cuts, so they can add another player. They should drop him and add another player. Carlos Hyde, as you said to me at the top of the show as well, he has had a concussion, but he's been cleared to practice, so as long as he gets on the field, he should be good to go for week 1. Forge Flyers now, Jordy Nelson, he will play week 1, but he probably will be on the snap count. Perhaps 60-70% has been talked about, but he's not going to play the full complement of snaps, coming back from obviously that ACL tear. Iknan, Jamal Charles, extremely unlikely to suit up week 1, also recovering from an ACL tear. Tom's Tyrants, Tyler Eifert, I think it was his hip. Do you remember what he injured?
I think it was his hip, yeah.
He is, I haven't read anything on him for a while, but he's extremely unlikely to play for week 1 and perhaps all of September. For you, Pat, John Brown, he has been dealing with concussion. I think he's back on the practice field. I haven't really read much about it. I think he should play on Sunday, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. The Tuckfards, Thomas Rawls will likely be on a snap count week 1. Might not play much at all, what I'm hearing, in his return from that ankle injury last season. Also, Devontae Parker, hamstrings. That is not a typo. Hamstrings. He is not practicing. I would be very surprised if he played this weekend. Cash for Gold. Unfortunately, they had to draft him. Robbie Gold has since been released from the Bears.
So that means that Ollie has to change his team name for next year, I guess?
Yeah, he can rock it this season, but yeah, we'll have to change that. The Dream Team, Justin Forsett, he will be the star of week 1, but it's kind of funny what happened to him. If you didn't follow it, he basically got released at final cuts. He has since been re-signed, basically because they were more confident of getting him back if they released him than any of their young running backs.
Yeah, and they want to save money.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, Gridiron Gang. Matt Jones obviously had that shoulder separation a few weeks ago in the preseason, but he should be good to go for week 1. Breathe. Right, so now I'll let you do a bit of the talking, because I always talk a lot in that part.
Oh, I like it when you talk a lot.
Yeah,
Less
you
pressure.
just get to sit and listen. But now you have to give your 2 cents on the power rankings. Now I released the power rankings today. I will read through the order, and you just give me some quick comments and quick takes about the power rankings and give me a chance to breathe. So, for number 1, we have Ignan. Number 2, Thomas Torrance. Number 3, the Dream Team. Number 4, Pakistan. Number 5, Bare Necessities. Number 6, Bedernators. Number 7, My Team, Gridiron Gang. Number 8, Forge Flyers. Number 9, ADRZ. Number 10, Cash for Gold. Number 11, The Bunch. And number 12, the Tuckfards. Now, before you give your take, I will say, at this point in the season, it's all very close. We haven't had a down football play. So I've already said in the show, it's very difficult to separate much teams better from worse. This is just my take. Personally, what do you make of it?
I really liked it when I read through it. I sort of read through it, knew when I was going to come on today, seeing what I would have done differently. I probably wouldn't have done it any differently to you. I loved Iknan's team. I just thought, well, especially with their bench and all the starters that they've got at the moment, it's kind of annoying. I didn't think of that sort of strategy to start off with when I was doing the draft. Tom's Torrance was another team. What did you put here? Woodclaw? Yeah, the wide receiver, maybe a bit of a problem. I don't see them getting as... Was it the targets we were chatting about? I can't remember exactly who it
they
was
have Kelvin
again.
Benjamin,
Oh, yeah.
Deshaun Jackson. I can't remember.
Injury and also...
Yeah, Jarvis Landry, so
yeah.
capped upside, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that, but the running back situation there is great. Dream Team, really liked their team as well. I'd put myself 4th as well. I still think those top 3 were definitely better than my team.
Mm-hmm.
Bare Necessities, I really liked Bare Necessities as well, but I think I preferred the Bedetonators team.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably switch them around.
Yep.
Yeah, it's because it's all down to the bad points you put here was players getting injured, and that's only if they get injured.
If it happens, yeah.
Until that happens, I would probably rank their team a little bit higher than Bare Necessities. Gridiron Gang. I liked your team as well, so I would probably bump it up, but I don't know who I'd bring down.
This is the thing, and this was kind of the comment we both had about my team. It's it's not going to set the world on fire from the outset, so it can't be too high.
But I definitely think it deserves at least a 6th spot, like middle of the table.
Sure.
But I think well, we always think this at the beginning of before the injuries start happening. We think everyone's team's not bad, so you probably want to bump them.
It's very hard to have a bad team before week 1. As we saw last year, all the draft picks just looked horrible on hindsight. Right now, it's all rose-tinted glasses. Yeah,
a year to this day, probably we'll probably be laughing at all of our all these draft picks, going, "What were we thinking?"
Without doubt.
Forge Flyers, yeah, I think they're good 8th. Starting lineup will not explode. No one will benches upside or. Yeah, the bench was a bit of a down point for me. You look through the team, you go, "Oh, I like that." Yeah, and then
the bench is kind of a train wreck.
Yeah. Well, you can always do that. Sort that in waivers, Chris. So don't worry. ADRZ, I don't think it was as. I thought his draft last year was a lot better than this one.
Yeah.
Still a lot of upside to it. I do really like the tight end they've got there. And what did you put for your bad points? Yeah, the running back situation's a bit bad, especially when you got Shane Vereen as their starting. Well, only their bench player starting.
Yeah.
And was it the other? Was his other running back?
Gio Bernard.
Bernard.
Again, a flex guy.
I thought he was on the bench. Who else was there?
Oh, sorry. Number 1. It would be Devontae Freeman.
Yeah. Devontae Freeman, and also a lot of questions about him and Tevin Coleman, who's going to get the most reps. Cash for Gold and the bunch I sort of classed under maybe a little bit of not as much preparation, or maybe not doing it before, because this is where I was at last year, was the inexperience that maybe picking some players like, what was tight end, Austin, I can never say his name.
Austin Seferian-Jenkins.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Draft pick. I don't understand the Jags pick. The Robbie Gold one you do understand, but there
was a kicker.
Kick as a kicker as well. So, but the Tuckfards, I don't know if you can get drunk on 4 beers, but it did seem like he was drunk that draft session, especially especially getting towards the end.
Yeah, some questionable picks.
He. But I still don't think he should have gone for Gronk first. He had picks of all the top running backs, and
Yeah, and all the top receivers are obviously still on the board as well. So it was definitely very interesting. Now we will finally get to the last segment of the show. Bit longer than I anticipated, apologies. So we have a marquee matchup to pick. So the matchups this week are Gridiron Gang against ADRZ, The Bunch against Forge Flyers, Ikenan against Tom's Tyrants, Badernators against Pakistan, Tugfods against Cash for Gold, and the Dream Team against Bare Necessities. What do you think of the marquee matchup this week?
I think that the marquee matchup will be maybe, was it the Dream Team Bare Necessities?
I think it's between them and Ikenan and Tom's Tyrants. I think, would you say Ikenan and Tom's Tyrants a bit more? Both highly ranked in the power rankings. Obviously, Ikenan made the finals last year. Tom's Tyrants won it 2 years ago. Had a strong finish last year, but didn't quite make it. So I think we'll go with them as the marquee matchup. So, unfortunately, I did not look at the records because I did not have time before we came on the show. So apologies, no stats about what their common record is beforehand. But we can talk about this game. So starting for Ikenan, we have Wilson, Charles, McCoy, Fitzgerald, Jeffrey, Fleener, Gore, Goskowski and Panthers. And for Tom's Tyrants, it's Luck, Miller, Lacey, Benjamin Landry, Miller, Jackson, Janikowski, Eagles. Projections have this one 5-point margin, Ikenan 107 to Tom's Tyrants 102. Who do you think's going to win?
I really think that Ikenan's going to top it. I think their team is just that much better than everyone else's teams. I still think Tom's Tyrants has got a fantastic team and probably will, if he can keep the waivers going the way he wants, I think he can easily make the playoffs.
Sure.
For something like this.
I agree. I think Ikenan takes week 1. We always see Tom's Tyrants team grow into themselves. I think that's going to be very much the case this year. Kelvin Benjamin obviously needs to work his way back into game shape. There's a few other things with the roster, whereas Ikenan, I think, is very week 1 ready. Obviously, they're not going to have Charles, so I anticipate the other starter probably being, they'll probably kick Gore into RB2 and start maybe Tyler Lockett or Blunt in the flex, I would say. Not great options, but I think they're still probably good enough to withstand that. So that was the marquee matchup. So 2-0 we've got for Ikenan there. We'll just flip to this one now. Gridiron Gang gets ADRZ. Obviously the current champion looking to go out and retain his title in his first campaign, ADRZ. ADRZ is predicted to win this one 102 to 96. Your comments about this game, Pat?
I'm not a massive fan of having Shane Vereen in the starting lineup. I'd probably give it to you on this one. The estimations just don't, they never turn out that way, the predicted points.
You say that, I mean, Jeff Sills nearly made playoffs last year.
Yeah,
just by going off the projections, and that was with not the best of rosters as well. It was funny. But I agree, I don't think Shane Vereen's a very good option.
I don't think Demarius Thomas is going to get that amount of points. Yeah, I reckon AJ Green can do that. Devontae Freeman, I still think that's 20 points in his opening.
We'll see. It was the thing about Devontae Freeman last year, that he got a lot of volume. He got all of his points because of the amount of volume he got. The analysts and everything look back on the tape. He does not run well. He was literally a volume play. So, as you say, splitting more reps with Tevin Coleman. I think Tevin Coleman might be the better receiving back. I'm not quite sure on that. It'll be interesting to see how the game flow goes for him. But I would agree. I think I'd take my team over ADRZ as well. Our next game, so we've got the Bunch against Forge Flyers. Predictions have this one going pretty low score at the moment. 83-71 in favor of the Bunch. What do you think about this game?
I believe that it will be a low scorer. I do think that maybe Forge Flyers will just beat them, maybe by just a few points. Mm-hmm. Mainly because I think Cam Newton will just rack up a load of points, especially in his opening week. He's probably getting ready to sort of make up for the Super Bowl.
Sure, tough Denver D still though.
Oh yeah,
playing in Mile High, not even on neutral ground this time. But I think I'd agree. The Bunch have Fitzpatrick. They've got some real tough matchups looking down here. Jeremy Hill against the Jets. Hyde against the Rams. What else is
Brown against Washington. The Antonio Brown against Josh Norman.
Yeah, very true. Didn't think about that. Sterling Shepard as well. We want hot on him as a flex option. Whereas on the other side of the ball, I think they've got a bit softer matchups, better plays. So yeah, I think I'd agree as well. Foot Flyers will probably take this one. So our next game, Bedenators against your team, Pakistan. Projections in this one, my gosh, it's a tight game. 88.5 to 88.24. It's predicted to be a close one, all right. What do you make of this game?
I'm not a massive fan of my matchups because I've got.
You've certainly got a few tough ones.
I've got Rivers against Kansas City. I've got
Stewart against Denver.
Gurley against San Francisco wouldn't be too
Gordon
bad.
against KC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a touch matchup, and I think Ollie's got a lot nicer. He's got Baltimore, Oakland. It's not too bad. I hate to say it, but I'd probably give it to Bedenators just on that because I think our teams aren't that.
Yeah. I think you're gonna have to expect a few low scores, and like you said, I think you probably need guys to compensate for that. Whereas on Bedenators' side of the ball, okay, he's probably going to have a couple of low performers too, but I don't think they necessarily will be as bad as yours. And yeah, other than that, they've got some really juicy matchups. So unfortunately, Pat, I'm going to have to go with Bedenators as well.
Yeah.
So I think this is we got two more matchups here. Tugfuzz against Cash for Gold. It's a bit of a lopsided one here. Tugfuzz predicted to win 110 to 82.5. Not an easy first game for Cash for Gold. We talked about that on the schedule reveal. But these were the bottom two teams in the power rankings.
Yeah.
What do you make of this game?
I think I do like the Tugfuzz in this situation. I think that they've not got too bad of a matchups with. Yeah, they have got Seattle for Arian Foster, but apart from that, it's not too bad. And also at this moment, Foster and Rules are healthy-ish.
Rules probably won't play much.
Oh no, he's not playing.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to go with Cash for Gold in this one. A few reasons. Like you said, Rules probably not going to play much, if at all. Foster facing Seattle. Brandon Marshall against Cincinnati. That's not an easy matchup. Gronkowski against Arizona without Brady. Now Gronk's a beast. I love the guy.
I was looking more down the bottom end of the board. Yeah, I wasn't looking at the top
Alan
ones.
Hearn's in store for regression as well, but Jacksonville figured to be passing to stay close in that game, so he might get work. On the other side of the ball, though, we've got Aaron Rodgers against Jacksonville. Ezekiel Elliott in his first game against the Giants defense. Doug Baldwin got an okay matchup. Murray Cooper, cake matchup against the Saints. Don't love the tight end. Would love it if they fixed the tight end. They need another tight end. But Tate against Indianapolis is soft D as well. Should be a good one. Obviously, they need to get another kicker in there. Maybe they swap out the Jax D. Who knows? I think Cash for Gold could maybe surprise and beat the Tugfuzz in week 1.
Yeah. I think I'd probably take back what I just said. Yeah, I'm looking at Cash for Gold. Yeah, no, and also I didn't really look at Cash for Gold's matchups that well. Just glanced at them. Yeah, they are a lot nicer actually.
Yeah. And finally here we have the Dream Team against Bare Necessities. Definitely, I think, as you said, the other contender for marquee matchup. This is projected to be quite a close one as well, 103 to 99. What do you think about this game?
I think that there's not amazing matchups for Viv. It's got Carolina, Denver, but also I can't make up my mind. Do you want to go first, and I'll have a little look into it?
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. This is definitely a close one. Yeah. Wow. How do you splice that? I think the Dream Team can. Oof. No, you know what? I'm going to go with Bare Necessities. I like Eli Manning against Dallas. I think they'll be throwing the ball more than they'll be able to run it. Forte against Cincinnati is a tough one. Williams against Washington isn't. Hopkins against Chicago. Cooks against Oakland. Moncrief against Detroit. Love that. Whereas you say on the other side of the ball, Anderson against Carolina, not a great one. Murray, I think game flow could work against him against New Orleans. Drew Brees is playing Oakland, so we'll see about that as well. Bryant against the Giants. I don't know how good that Prescott's going to be. I could see Dez Bryant struggling until Prescott comes into his own at least. as you say, Olsen against Denver, that's a tough one. And Forsett against Buffalo. I know Buffalo are missing a lot of pieces right now, but, I think it's going to be a bit of a four-headed monster. So, yeah, I think I'll take bare necessities in this one.
Yeah, I'll take bare necessities as well. I think what you've just said hits a nail right on the head. Yeah, I just think down to matchups this week, I think bare necessity have it. But I think Dream Team overall have got probably just got the stronger side.
Sure. And that is the end of our very bumper show. Sorry, this ran a bit longer than I wanted, but hey, when we do draft recap, it often does. So tune in with us next week. We'll obviously be back with the Week 1 recap and Week 2 preview. But other than that, we've got a weekend of football to look forward to. You're going to come to mine and watch the games, Pat?
I'm going back to university on Sunday, so I can't make it.
So probably no then.
Probably not.
You're going to watch the games though?
I'm going to watch the games when I get there, yeah.
Super. Well, goodbye from us. Have a good week and have a very good first weekend of NFL action. See you next week.